It all started so innocently, or so I thought. I never imagined that my best friend would betray me like this. I always believed I had a pretty simple life, maybe not perfect, but comfortable. My name's Emily, and I thought I had everything in the world, a beautiful home, a steady career, and a husband I loved deeply. His name was Jack. He was kind, charming, the type of man you felt safe with. We'd been married for 6 years, and I thought we were happy, like any other couple who'd made it past the honeymoon phase. But I was wrong. I should have known better. My best friend, Claire, had always been there for me, through thick and thin. We'd been inseparable since college. She was the kind of person who was always by your side, always had your back. She was funny, spontaneous, and had this magnetic personality that drew people to her. Everyone loved Claire. And why wouldn't they? She was gorgeous, vibrant, and always had this infectious energy that could light up any room. But deep down, I always felt a tinge of jealousy. I never showed it, hell, I didn't even acknowledge it, but something about her presence always felt a little too perfect. Like she was always just a little bit better than me. But that was my insecurity talking. I was used to it. And I had Jack, what more could a woman ask for? I should have noticed the signs earlier, the small things. The way Claire would look at Jack a little too long when we were together. The playful way she'd touch his arm or laugh a bit too loudly at his jokes. I always brushed it off, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But deep down, something was off. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Friday night, and Jack and I were hosting a dinner party at our house. Claire had been there earlier, helping me set up, and everything felt normal, as usual. Jack had been acting a little distant that week, but I chalked it up to work stress. He was a lawyer, and the hours could be brutal. I didn't think much of it. We were having a good time, eating, drinking, laughing, and everything seemed perfect. But as the night wore on, I noticed something strange. Jack and Claire had been talking privately in the corner for longer than I thought was normal. At first, I thought it was just some inside joke, something they were reminiscing about. But then I saw the way they were looking at each other, too much eye contact, a little too intense. I couldn't help but feel a knot tighten in my stomach. Later that night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, I confronted Jack. "What was going on between you and Claire earlier?" I asked, my voice shaky but determined. He looked at me, almost confused. "What do you mean?" "We were just talking, Em. You know how she is. Always making me laugh." But I didn't buy it. Something in the way he said it felt off. "You were talking a lot, Jack. It wasn't just friendly conversation. And don't lie to me. I saw the way she looked at you." Jack sighed and ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. "Emily, it's nothing. Really. You're overthinking things. We're just friends, okay? Nothing more." I didn't believe him, but I didn't press the issue that night. Maybe it was my insecurity again, playing tricks on my mind. Or maybe it was the alcohol making me see things that weren't there. Either way, I didn't think it was something to get upset over. But the next morning, everything changed. I woke up to a text message from Claire, one that would haunt me forever. "I'm so sorry, Em. I didn't mean for it to happen this way, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Jack and I have been seeing each other for months. It started as something innocent, but it grew into something more. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Please forgive me." I sat there in shock, staring at my phone, unable to comprehend what I had just read. Jack and Claire. My best friend. My husband. The two people I trusted most in this world. And now, they had betrayed me. In the worst way possible. The truth hit me like a freight train, and I wasn't sure how to survive the aftermath. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The message from Claire was still on my phone, glaring at me like some kind of cruel joke. I read it over and over again, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. Jack and Claire, Two of the people I trusted most in the world had been secretly seeing each other behind my back for months. How had I not seen this coming? How had I missed the signs? I wanted to scream, to throw my phone against the wall, but all I could do was sit there, numb. The silence in our house felt suffocating. Jack was still asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of what had been set in motion. How could he sleep so peacefully after everything that had happened? How could he just betray me like that? I walked upstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. My heart was beating so fast, I thought it might explode. I opened the bedroom door and saw Jack lying there, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. His face was relaxed, a small smile on his lips, as if he didn't have a care in the world. I stood there for a long moment, just watching him, feeling the anger and the hurt wash over me. How could he do this to me? How could he do this to us? We had built a life together, one I thought was full of love and trust. But now, it was all shattered. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I shook him awake. Jack. Wake up. We need to talk. He groggily opened his eyes and smiled at me, but when he saw the look on my face, his smile faded. What's wrong? Why are you? You think nothing was going on between you and Claire? My voice was shaky, barely more than a whisper, but the words were sharp. Jack blinked, confusion clouding his expression. What do you mean? I told you, it's nothing. Just a bit of fun, nothing serious. She's my friend, Em. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone, holding it in front of his face. His eyes widened as he read the message from Claire, the one that had turned my world upside down. Jack's face went pale. Emily, Don't you dare say anything, I cut him off, the words coming out in a burst of raw emotion. Don't try to explain this away. I've seen the way you look at her, the way you both look at each other. I saw it at the party last week, I saw it last night, everything. And now you tell me this? My voice cracked, and I felt like I was choking on the truth. Jack sat up in bed, his face a mixture of guilt and panic. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, Em. It wasn't planned. We didn't mean for it to. You didn't mean for it to happen? I shot back, feeling the anger and pain build up like a tidal wave. You didn't mean for my best friend to betray me? You didn't mean to break our vows, to destroy everything we've built together? You didn't mean to make me feel like I'm the one who's been blind this whole time? Jack opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. His silence was more deafening than any words he could have spoken. I don't want to hear your excuses, Jack, I said, my voice shaking now. You've been lying to me. You've been lying to both of us. My voice cracked again as I stepped back, unable to even look at him anymore. I trusted you. I loved you. And you've ruined everything. I turned to leave the room, but Jack grabbed my arm. Emily, please. Please don't leave like this. Let's talk. We can fix this. I wrenched my arm away from his grip. Fix this? How? How do you even fix something like this, Jack? You've crossed a line I can't come back from. I could see the panic in his eyes, the desperate plea for me to understand, but I couldn't. I was too broken. Too betrayed. I stormed out of the room, heading straight for the front door. I needed space, I needed air, I needed to breathe without him in the same room. But before I could get outside, the phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Claire. I almost didn't answer it. The rage inside me was so powerful, so consuming, that I couldn't even begin to imagine what she would say. But curiosity got the better of me. I swiped the screen. Emily, Claire's voice came through, shakier than I expected. I am so sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way. It was a mistake. I should have told you. Please, don't hate me. I could hear her voice crack, but I didn't care. You think sorry is going to fix this? You think sorry makes up for what you've done? I felt the bile rise in my throat. You've been sleeping with my husband behind my back, Claire. My husband. You think a simple apology is going to make up for that? There was silence on the other end of the line. For the first time, I didn't hear the usual confidence in Claire's voice, the self-assured tone that always seemed to make everything feel like it would be okay. Now, she sounded broken, scared, as if she knew that no apology in the world would ever make this right. I don't know what to say, Em. I never meant to hurt you. I thought, she paused, and I could hear her take a shaky breath. I thought you and Jack were fine. I didn't mean for this to happen. But it did happen, Claire, I interrupted, my voice barely controlled. And now, you've ruined everything. Everything. With those words, I hung up. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be the person who just took the betrayal and smiled. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. Not when I felt like I was drowning in lies. As I sat down on the couch, the weight of the situation sank in. This wasn't just about losing Jack. This was about losing someone I thought was my best friend, someone I thought I could trust. My heart was shattered, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't going to sit back and let Claire and Jack's betrayal slide. No, if they thought they could destroy me, they had another thing coming. I wasn't going to sit in silence. I wasn't going to cry myself to sleep every night, wondering what went wrong. No. I would make them pay. The next few days felt like a haze. I went through the motions, showing up at work, dealing with friends and colleagues who didn't know anything about what had happened. But inside, I was a mess. Jack had tried to reach out, sending texts and even calling, but I ignored every attempt. I couldn't face him, not after everything. Claire? She kept texting me too, apologizing, pleading with me to understand, to talk to her. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I heard my phone buzz, my stomach twisted into knots. The betrayal was still too fresh. The anger, the hurt, it consumed me. The house we had shared, the life we had built together, was now a cold, empty shell of what it once was. And the worst part? I couldn't shake the image of Claire and Jack together. The thought of them whispering behind my back, the lies they shared, the intimacy they had stolen from me, it felt like my entire world was built on sand, and now it was crumbling beneath me. But the one thing that kept me going, the one thing that lit a fire deep inside me, was the thought of revenge. Not just because I wanted to hurt them, but because I wanted to take control back. I wanted to show Jack, show Claire, that I was strong enough to rise above this. That I wouldn't be a victim in their twisted game. For the first time since all of this began, I sat down and started thinking clearly. What could I do? What should I do? I knew I couldn't just let them get away with this. I had to make a statement. It wouldn't be immediate, and it wouldn't be easy, but I had to hit them where it hurt. And that's when I started to think about everything they cared about. Jack. He loved his job. He was a partner at a prestigious law firm. He prided himself on his success, on his reputation. I could use that against him. And Claire. She had a reputation too, one she guarded closely. She was well liked, everyone thought she was the perfect friend, the perfect woman. But what if I exposed her? What if I made sure everyone knew the real Claire? That's when I started making my plan. It wasn't about destroying their lives completely, but it was about showing them that no one, could mess with me and get away with it. The first thing I did was to go to the one place I knew would have the answers I needed, Claire's past. I knew that Claire had a history. I had heard her talk about it over the years, about some old relationships she had before Jack and me, some messy breakups, some bad decisions. She'd told me a few things in confidence, things I had never shared with anyone else. But now, those things could be my weapon. I reached out to a few old contacts, people I knew from years ago, people who knew Claire before she became the polished, perfect woman she was today. It didn't take long before I found out what I needed to know. Claire's past wasn't as clean as she liked to make it seem. She had skeletons, ones that would make her current life much less picture-perfect. I smiled to myself as I wrote down the details. This was the first step. I wasn't going to expose her all at once, though. No, I was going to take my time, make sure I had everything I needed before I made my move. The next phase of my plan was about Jack. I called in some favors at his law firm. I didn't need to bring down the whole building, just a few key people who would be able to put pressure on him. I knew about a few shady things that had happened in the past, things he'd done to climb the ladder faster. I wasn't going to ruin his career, but I was going to make sure that he never felt completely secure in it again. I met with a former colleague of Jack's, someone who had worked under him and knew the ins and outs of the firm. The conversation was easy at first, casual, friendly, but I could tell she was hesitant when I began to ask the more pointed questions. Jack's been involved in a few questionable things, hasn't he? I asked, keeping my voice light but firm. She hesitated, then nodded. There were a couple of incidents, yes. Nothing that ever went public, but if anyone found out. I knew I had her. I didn't want to ruin Jack's life, but I was going to remind him that he didn't have the control he thought he did. He had made the mistake of thinking he could control me, of thinking that I would just sit back and let him destroy everything I had. The next few weeks passed in a blur as I built my plan, piece by piece. Claire and Jack had no idea what was coming. They were too wrapped up in their own lies, their own guilt, to even think that I might be planning something. But I could see it, every move they made, every time they tried to reach out to me. I knew they were starting to panic. They thought I was just sitting there, wallowing in my pain. But in reality, I was carefully constructing the perfect revenge. And then, just when I thought everything was in place, Claire reached out again. "I know you're upset, Emily," she texted, her message simple but full of meaning. "Please, let's talk. This is tearing me apart." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Oh, I'm sure it's tearing you apart, Claire. But you'll never understand how much this has hurt me. You don't get to apologize your way out of this." I hit send and leaned back in my chair, a small smile creeping onto my lips. It was time to make my move. The moment I'd been planning for finally arrived. Claire and Jack would finally have to face the consequences of their actions, and I was ready to watch it all unfold. The weeks after I sent that text were some of the longest of my life. My plan was in motion, and I could feel the tension building, like the calm before the storm. But even though I was prepared, a small part of me still dreaded the confrontation. I had built this up for so long, told myself that I was strong enough to carry through with it. But I could still feel the remnants of the love I once had for Jack, still hear the echoes of the friendship Claire and I had shared. Would it be worth it? Was this really the only way to make them understand what they had taken from me? But no. I had to remind myself that I wasn't doing this for my own vindication. This was about justice. This was about showing them that betrayal, especially from the people you loved most, comes with a price. They needed to understand that their actions had consequences, and I would be the one to make sure they learned that lesson. It all came to a head one chilly afternoon when Claire texted again, begging me to meet. She wanted to talk. She said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. She said I deserved to know everything. I felt a small twinge of satisfaction. The walls she had built around herself were crumbling, and I was going to make sure I was standing there when they did. I agreed to meet her at a local cafe, one that was quiet enough to hold a conversation but public enough to make sure things didn't get out of hand. I arrived early, sitting at a corner table with my back to the wall, watching the entrance. My heart was pounding in my chest, not from nerves, but from anticipation. This was it. The beginning of the end. Claire arrived a few minutes later, her face pale, her eyes wide with anxiety. She looked almost like a stranger now, the vibrant woman who had once been my best friend now reduced to someone who couldn't even look me in the eye. She sat down across from me, wringing her hands nervously. "I'm sorry, Emily. I really am," she started, her voice shaky. "I never meant for things to go this far, but No, I interrupted, my voice sharp, cutting through her apology. "Don't tell me you're sorry, Claire. Don't try to act like this is just some mistake that got out of hand. You chose this. You chose Jack over me. You betrayed me, and I don't want your pity or your excuses. Her face fell, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. But then I remembered everything, every moment of my pain, every time I had trusted her, and every time she had chosen to lie to my face. No, I didn't feel sorry for her. I wasn't the one who had wronged anyone. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It just happened. I didn't know how to stop it. It wasn't planned. I never wanted to hurt you. I leaned in, my eyes locking onto hers. You did hurt me, Claire. You took everything from me. My trust, my husband, my best friend. And now you want me to just forgive you because you didn't mean to hurt me? That doesn't work like that. Claire looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. I never meant for things to end up this way. I've lost you, I've lost Jack, I've lost everything. You haven't lost everything, I said coldly. You still have Jack. He's the one you chose. You both made your choices, and now you'll have to live with them. Her face contorted in guilt and frustration, but I wasn't done. I hadn't said everything I needed to say. You took my husband from me. And now, I'm going to make sure you understand that there are consequences for what you've done. I paused, watching her closely, letting the words sink in. I won't just let you walk away from this. And I won't let Jack either. Claire swallowed hard, the realization hitting her. What are you going to do? I smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. You'll see. Trust me, Claire. You and Jack won't get away with this. I'll make sure of it. I stood up to leave, and as I turned to walk out of the cafe, I could hear Claire calling after me. Emily, please don't do this. I never wanted to hurt you. Please. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Claire had made her choice. And now, she would pay the price. Later that night, I texted Jack. It was time for the final confrontation. I had been planning this for weeks, and now, everything was falling into place. We need to talk. I'll be at the house at 7. Don't bother trying to hide. We're having the conversation you should have had with me months ago. I couldn't wait for the moment when Jack would finally understand that he had lost everything. That the comfortable life he thought he could have with Claire would come crashing down. He would learn the hard way that there was a price to pay for betrayal. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. I had made my peace with the fact that this would be painful, for all of us. But sometimes, pain was the only way to break through the lies and deceit. Sometimes, it was the only way to heal. As the clock ticked closer to 7 p.m., I prepared myself. This was going to be the moment I had waited for, the moment when I would expose everything. And once I did, there would be no going back for Jack or Claire. The time had come. Jack and Claire would finally have to face the consequences of what they had done, and I would be the one to make them face it. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my clothes, my heartbeat quickening with every passing second. The house felt unnaturally quiet, as if it knew that tonight, everything would change. There would be no more pretending, no more sugarcoating. Tonight, I would take control back, once and for all. I looked at the clock, 7 p.m. sharp. It was time. I grabbed my keys and walked out of the apartment, feeling a strange mixture of nervousness and calm. I wasn't sure what to expect from Jack, but I knew that whatever happened, I would walk away from this with more clarity, more strength than I ever thought I could have. As I drove to the house, the familiar streets seemed different, colder somehow. Everything felt detached, like I was walking through a dream. This house had once been a symbol of my life with Jack, our home, filled with love and laughter. But now it felt like a prison, a place where betrayal had taken root, and there was no going back. I parked in the driveway, staring up at the house. The lights were on, but I could see the silhouette of Jack standing by the window. He knew I was coming. He knew this moment was inevitable. And I could already see the panic in his eyes as he saw me pull up. I took a deep breath before walking to the door. The weight of the key in my hand felt like a burden, as if it was a relic of a time I couldn't return to. Jack opened the door before I had a chance to knock, his expression a mixture of guilt and frustration. "Emily, you came," he said, his voice flat, as if he was bracing himself for what was coming. "Don't pretend like this is just another conversation, Jack," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "This isn't about talking anymore. This is about consequences." He stepped aside to let me in, and I walked into the house that once felt like home. The same furniture, the same pictures on the wall, but everything felt different now. The warmth was gone, replaced by a coldness that made every step I took feel heavy. I could see the emptiness in Jack's eyes as he followed me into the living room. He looked disheveled, nervous, he knew what was coming. I turned to face him. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, Jack. About how it all went down. And I realized something," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "This isn't just about you and Claire. This is about me. About my life. And how you both decided to destroy it. You didn't just betray me, Jack. You tried to take everything from me. You tried to take my future, my dignity, my sense of trust." His eyes widened as I spoke, but he didn't interrupt. He just stood there, waiting for me to finish. "You think you've won. You think that you can just move on from this. That you can run off with Claire and forget everything we had. But let me tell you something," I said, stepping closer to him, the fire in my chest growing with each word. "You've made a mistake. And I won't let you get away with it." Jack opened his mouth to say something, but I raised a hand, silencing him. "You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to say you were sorry or that it was a mistake. You took my life, Jack. You took my best friend, my husband, and my trust. You can't just walk away from that." His face shifted from guilt to anger. "What do you want from me, Emily? Huh? What do you think you're going to accomplish here? This is done. It's over." "No, Jack. It's not over," I said, my voice rising. "You may think you've moved on. You may think that because you've chosen Claire, you've won. But the truth is, you've both underestimated me. You've underestimated the pain you've caused. And now? Now it's my turn." Jack took a step forward, his expression darkening. "What are you talking about? What are you going to do? What could you possibly do?" I took a step back, gathering my composure before I spoke again. "I'm not here to destroy your life, Jack. But I will make sure everyone knows the truth. The truth about you, about Claire, and about what you did behind my back. I'm not going to let this slide." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I've already started. You think I didn't notice the things you've been hiding? The lies you've told at work? The shady deals you've made to climb the ladder faster?" I saw Jack flinch, his face pale. "You're not untouchable, Jack. And Claire? She's not as perfect as she's made herself out to be." He took another step back, his face now a mix of disbelief and fear. You wouldn't do that to me. We have history, Emily. We've been through so much together." "Exactly," I said, the bitterness in my voice growing. "We've been through so much together. And you threw it all away. You don't get to erase the past, Jack. You don't get to erase the fact that you broke me." There was a long pause as I let the silence fill the room. Jack didn't speak. He couldn't. Because for the first time, he was seeing me as more than just his wife, the one he could control, the one he could hurt. "I'm done being your victim," I said, my voice steady now. "You think you've won? You think you can move on and live your life with Claire? No. You'll live with this for the rest of your life. And so will she." I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. But before I could make it to the door, Jack called out. "Emily, wait. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I. But I didn't turn back. I didn't need to hear it. I had already won. In that moment, I realized that the most powerful revenge wasn't in what I could take from them, it was in taking control of my own life, my own future. The dust had settled, but the consequences of Jack and Claire's betrayal were far from over. Now, they would have to reckon with the fallout, and so would I. I didn't look back when I left Jack standing in the living room. I didn't need to hear the apologies, the justifications, or the pleading. I had said everything I needed to say. The emotional weight that had been pressing on me for weeks felt slightly lighter as I drove away. I wasn't just driving away from the house, I was driving away from everything that had been taken from me. From the lies, from the betrayal, from the woman I once called my best friend. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain, I was done being the victim. The days after the confrontation felt strange, quiet. It was as though I had been living in a fog, and now, I could finally see clearly. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was waking up to my own life. The world didn't seem like it was crumbling around me anymore. I was rebuilding, and for the first time since the betrayal, I felt some measure of control. But the fallout was inevitable. Jack tried to reach out again, of course, he called, sent texts, even showed up at my apartment. But I ignored him. I had nothing left to say to him. Every word felt hollow, empty, like a last-ditch attempt to salvage something that couldn't be salvaged. Claire, on the other hand, had become desperate. Her apologies grew more frequent, and the guilt she showed was palpable, but it was too late. I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't going to be manipulated, not by her, not by Jack. Not by anyone. It wasn't until a week later that I received the first real sign of how deep the betrayal had gone. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping coffee and trying to get some work done, when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Claire. My stomach sank. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I can't live with myself anymore. Please, Emily. I'm begging you to listen. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. I wasn't sure what she wanted, but I was done playing games. Still, there was a part of me that wanted to hear her out, to see if there was any shred of honesty left in her. So, I agreed to meet her, but only on my terms. I sent her a message back. I'll meet you at the park at 2. But don't think for a second that I'm doing this for you. This is for me. When the time came, I arrived at the park early, walking slowly, taking in the crisp air, trying to gather my thoughts. I wasn't going to let this conversation be a repeat of the emotional manipulation I had been subjected to in the past. I was going to be calm, collected. I was going to get the truth, and that would be the end of it. Claire arrived right on time, looking as lost and broken as I had ever seen her. She walked toward me slowly, hesitantly, like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. And for the first time, I saw her not as my best friend, but as a stranger. A stranger who had stabbed me in the back. I'm so sorry, Emily, she said quietly, standing a few feet away from me, her voice low. I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I studied her for a moment, trying to read her. Was she truly sorry? Or was this just another performance, another attempt to make herself look like the victim? She had already taken so much from me, my life, my trust, my marriage. Was this apology going to be the thing that finally made me feel better? I don't care about your apology, Claire, I said, my voice firm but calm. The fact that you're sorry doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change what you did to me. To us. She looked down at her feet, and I could see the guilt on her face. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I regret it. I've lost you. I've lost everything that mattered. And I don't know how to fix it. Her words hit me hard. I didn't want to hear them. But I couldn't ignore the truth in her voice. Claire had made her choices, just as I had made mine. She had to live with the consequences of her actions, just like I was living with mine. I'm done with this, Claire, I said, my voice steady. I'm not going to beg for your forgiveness, and I'm not going to let you manipulate me into feeling sorry for you. What you did was unforgivable, and I need you to understand that. But I'm not going to carry the weight of your guilt with me. It's time for both of us to move on. I turned to walk away, but before I did, I paused, looking back at her one last time. You'll have to live with this. With what you did. And so will Jack. But I won't let it define me. You're not a part of my life anymore. With those final words, I walked away, leaving Claire standing in the park, her face streaked with tears. But as I walked, I felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had made the right decision. The final pieces of my life were falling back into place. Slowly, but surely, I was reclaiming everything I had lost. The betrayal still stung, but I was learning how to forgive myself, how to forgive the past. And that, more than anything, was what would set me free. Jack thought I'd be broken, but he couldn't have been more wrong. The real lesson was just beginning, and this time, it would be my terms. After my conversation with Claire, I felt a strange sense of closure. It wasn't an easy conversation, and it didn't magically fix everything, but it was necessary. It was the final chapter in the end of my relationship with her. She had made her choice, and now I had made mine. I was moving on. But there was one final piece of the puzzle left to resolve: Jack. I had been avoiding him for weeks, refusing to engage with his calls or messages. But avoiding him was no longer an option. This wasn't just about my healing anymore. It was about setting boundaries. It was about showing him that I wasn't going to let his betrayal destroy me. If anything, it had fueled my resolve. He needed to see that. He needed to understand that I wasn't going to back down. I knew that confronting him wasn't going to be easy, but it was the only way. I had given him enough chances, enough time to make things right, and he had thrown every single one of them away. Now, I was going to show him that there were consequences for the choices he had made. There was no running away from the truth. I texted him late one night, "We need to talk. I'll be at the house tomorrow at noon." The response came quickly. "Emily, please, don't do this. I know I've hurt you, but we need to fix this. I need to explain." I could feel my pulse quicken as I read his message. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. He had made his choices, and now he was going to face the consequences of those choices. The next day, I drove to our old house, the house I once thought of as our home. Now, it felt like a place full of nothing but reminders of betrayal. But I was stronger than I had been before, and I wasn't going to let the past control me. When I arrived, Jack was waiting outside. He looked worn, like the weight of his own guilt was starting to get to him. But there was something in his eyes, something that still tried to convince me he could fix this, that he could make it all go away with just a few words. I didn't let him speak first. I walked past him, my back straight, my heart calm despite the storm inside me. He followed me inside, his footsteps hesitant. "Emily, please, I know I've made mistakes," he started, his voice shaky. "But I love you. I always have. This wasn't supposed to happen." I turned to face him, my eyes locking onto his. "Love? Jack, if you really loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have betrayed me, not with her, not like this. This wasn't some momentary lapse of judgment. This was a choice. And you chose her." His face fell, the anger and defensiveness fading into something more vulnerable, more broken. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Emily. I didn't. I was confused. Things between us, they weren't what they should have been. And Claire, she understood me in ways I thought you didn't." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I controlled it. I had learned a lot during these weeks, and I wasn't going to let my emotions control me now. "So, you blamed me for what happened? You blamed us? I gave you everything, Jack. I supported you, I loved you, I built a life with you. And you threw it all away because Claire understood you better?" He didn't have an answer. His silence was all I needed. You think an apology is going to make it right? I continued, my voice firm. You think that if you tell me you didn't mean it, that it will all just go away? No. You've lost my trust. You've lost everything. Jack stepped forward, his hands outstretched, almost pleading. Emily, please. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. I want to make this right. But I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. The man who had stood in front of me, my husband, was gone. In his place was someone who had broken me, someone who had destroyed the life we had built together. There's nothing left to fix, Jack, I said quietly. The person I knew is gone. And so is the life I thought we had. You can't take it back. You can't fix what you broke. His face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I reminded myself of the pain I had been through, of the nights I spent wondering what was wrong with me, why I hadn't seen the truth. He had done this. Not just to me, but to us. And now, it was time to move on. I've made my peace with this, I said, my voice strong. And now you need to make yours. You need to live with the choices you made, just like I'm going to live with mine. I turned and walked toward the door, not looking back. Jack didn't try to stop me. I knew he wouldn't. He couldn't fix what was already broken. As I walked out, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about hurting them the way they had hurt me. It was about reclaiming my life, my power, and my future. I had lost Jack. I had lost Claire. But in the end, I hadn't lost myself. I was walking away stronger than ever. It wasn't the end I had expected. But it was the beginning of something better, something that was mine and mine alone. The days after the confrontation felt surreal. I had said what I needed to say to Jack, to Claire. I had faced the painful truth and allowed myself to feel all of it, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the anger, but most importantly, I had let myself move past it. It had been a long time coming, but I was finally free. At first, the silence was overwhelming. My apartment felt empty, colder than it ever had before. But I soon realized it wasn't emptiness, I was just creating space for something new. Space for me. For the first time in a long time, I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I had spent so many years living for someone else, trying to fix things for Jack, trying to save my friendships. Now, I was living for myself. And that felt empowering. I spent the next few weeks sorting through the mess Jack and Claire had left behind. I took time to reflect, to heal. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years, pouring my feelings out onto the page. It felt cathartic. Slowly, I began to regain my sense of self, the version of me that had been buried beneath the hurt and the anger. I found solace in my own company, in rediscovering the hobbies and passions I had put on the back burner. It wasn't easy, but I was starting to build something solid from the rubble of my past. I knew that the real work wasn't about Jack or Claire anymore. It wasn't about fixing what had been broken, it was about me. I had to rebuild my trust in myself, in my ability to make decisions, to move forward. I had to trust that I could handle whatever came next, even if it wasn't easy. One afternoon, a few weeks after the confrontation with Jack, I received a message from my mother. I hadn't told her everything, not about the betrayal, not about the wreckage my life had become. She had called a few times, worried about me, but I had kept things vague, not wanting to burden her with the details. But now, I was ready. I was ready to share it all, to let her in on the truth. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. No matter what happens, I want you to know that you're stronger than you think. Her words meant more than she could ever know. It was exactly what I needed to hear at that moment, a reminder that, despite everything, I was not alone. I had people who loved me. People who believed in me. And that was enough. As the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like myself again. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't seen in ages, and I slowly started to open up about the pain I had been through. The more I spoke about it, the less power it had over me. I began to laugh again, to enjoy things without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. I started taking short trips on weekends, exploring new places, meeting new people. I felt like I was rediscovering the world. One evening, I ran into someone unexpected. It was at a local coffee shop, where I had been working on some freelance projects. He was sitting at the table next to mine, and we exchanged a casual greeting. He was warm, kind, and had a way about him that made me feel at ease. His name was Daniel, and he seemed completely different from anyone I had known in the past. He wasn't trying to fix me, wasn't trying to be anything I needed. He was just there. And that, in itself, was refreshing. We started talking, and before I knew it, hours had passed. We shared stories, talked about our lives, and laughed over coffee. It wasn't anything serious, just two people enjoying a conversation, but it felt good. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of my past, the anger, the resentment. I was just me. That night, I went home with a sense of peace I hadn't had in a long time. It wasn't that I had forgotten about the past, it would always be there, a part of who I was, but it no longer defined me. The person I had become was stronger, wiser, and more in control of her own happiness. As the months continued, Danielle and I stayed in touch. We became friends at first, then something more, but I didn't rush it. I didn't need to rush anything. I was finally learning to take life at my own pace, and for the first time I wasn't afraid to be on my own. I had learned that happiness didn't depend on anyone else. It came from within. And when I looked back at everything, at the pain, at the betrayal, at the heartbreak, I didn't regret any of it. Because it led me to this place. To a place where I was strong enough to stand on my own, where I could face the world without fear of the past creeping up behind me. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to make Jack and Claire suffer the way they had made me suffer. I didn't need to make them pay. Because the greatest revenge was living my life on my terms, without them, without their lies. And that was more than enough. The end. Author's note. This story is about the power of reclaiming your life after betrayal. It's not just about revenge or getting even, it's about finding the strength to move forward and rebuild. Emily's journey is one of self-discovery and healing, showing us that the real power comes from within. After the pain and the loss, there is always a path forward, and that path often leads to something better than what was lost. The best revenge isn't to destroy, it's to rise above.